distribution cans, and they were laying them out as their own line. Now, what you're seeing with this phalanx of police is this is the hold line. This is where they want the protesters to stay. There's no direct engagement with the protesters. In between the two groups, there's a line of media. That's a precarious place to be in. A lot of those camera photojournalists are there. We'll stay on monitoring this situation. But as long as it stays like this, we won't dwell on it too long until there's something to report.
And that's the point. We don't want this to eclipse the excitement of all of the people who have come here for Mr. Trump's inauguration. You know, obviously people came here to exercise their First Amendment rights, but when it turns violent, that's a different situation.
Then it's a crime. A protest is protected.
Yes, a riot is violent. So,
right.
David Gregory, you're here with Chris and me. So can you put this into perspective for us in terms of inaugurations past?
Well, there's always going to be protests, and we're going to see big protests here over the weekend opposed to now President Trump. It's hard to tell from this vantage point what this is. It could be people who just want to make trouble. It seems to be a lot more cops and media than there are protesters based on the images so far. Certainly what I've seen in walking around are not a lot of protesters. There are pockets. There's a lot of excited people here, people who are excited. Again, you look at images of the tear gas that can belie that, and again, we're going to have to hold these two images. That's only a few blocks from where we are right now, but where we are along the parade route, there's an extremely peaceful and excited group of people who are here to see the parade.
That could also just be a deterrent device that they have. If it were tear gas, I can promise you those people wouldn't be staying where the cloud is. They'd be dispersing. So we just lost our live picture from there. We'll get back to it when we can. Now remember, one of the reasons we're showing you it is the main event hasn't started yet. The inaugural parade and its mile-and-a-half expanse is going to take place just behind us, and it starts in about an hour from now. And as we've traveled around the city, there are pockets of protesters here. As David said, it's hard to get a specific number of this. The police are holding their line. But overwhelmingly, you have people here who are celebrating our new president.
Oh, everywhere we've gone, Chris. I mean, you and I have been in coffee shops. We've been on the street most of the morning. We've been traversing this city, and people have come up to us to tell us how excited they are, to tell us how they've come from all over the country, how they've come with their parents. So this, again, is just horribly unfortunate that something is turning violent. It didn't have to. Obviously, there are people here for the march tomorrow, but they were here, they said, to just exercise their First Amendment rights. So this is unfortunate. But where we are, yes, David?
I would just say, let's also point out, I mean, as you have, I've covered protests around the globe at big globalization events, at big summits. You've got people who come into these crowds, too, who are really there to make trouble. If you had a chance to talk to them, I don't know that they would have a coherent agenda against the new president of the United States. They may want to just get this kind of attention. So it's very difficult to really capture what we've got here, but it is kind of juxtaposed alongside a lot of excitement just along the parade.
Right, and so where we are, there's people lining the streets very peacefully.
These are anti-war protesters, it looks like. No allegiance to deadly force.
Yeah, behind us, if you can hear the ambient noise, there's a little bit of a protest marching through behind us, but there's not making any trouble.
And just to introduce you to what you're seeing, if you're just turning on your screen right now, we're looking at one of the pockets of protests that have come here as we're awaiting the commencement of the official inaugural parade. You're seeing smoke clouds from deterrent devices that are being launched by the riot police that are lined up. We have some protesters behind us who are chanting as they walk by us here on the inaugural parade route. We're not sure what the protest situation is that's on your screen right now. There are some people there. How many? We're not sure. There has been a use from our reporters on the scene of pepper spray. Again, you're seeing those smoke clouds, which are part of the deterrent to move the line of protesters back. There's a huge line of media there as well. But thus far, what you're seeing on the screen has been the extent in the context of some 90 arrests that have taken place in D.C. so far.
Renee Marsh is in the middle of this, and she can give us better perspective of what she's seeing there on the ground. Renee?
Yeah, guys, you know what? Despite them deploying the pepper spray, which we just experienced seconds ago, and despite, all of the riot police here, they continue to throw large chunks of rocks. And so this standoff is continuing, where you have individuals who are essentially attacking police here. They are throwing large pieces of concrete at the and it's causing just a frantic situation here in which people are running and knocking people over and it's a lot of disorder here. They clearly do not have the situation under control at the intersection of K and 12th Street.
Renee, do you have any idea of the numbers involved, of how many people are on the protest side, how many media are between them and the police? Can you give us some numbers?
It's really hard to tell from where I am. I can tell you that there's a lot of press here, but there's a lot of protesters as well. I think that it's only a handful of people who are throwing the rocks that's causing all of this commotion here. But honestly, it's hard to pinpoint in this large crowd who are the culprits throwing these large chunks of concrete at police. Right now, I can tell you things are kind of at a standstill in the sense that I do not see any rocks flowing through the air. Riot police were standing with their shields up. They're telling us to move back a bit, but still nothing settled. It's still unsettling in the sense that people are just on edge.
Yeah. The police have been prepared for this. They knew that there would be protests. They have been planning, obviously, for this inauguration for months. So they are obviously using their training here. Brian Todd is also now on the scene. Brian, what can you tell us from your vantage point?
Well, the police are rushing this group of protesters right here. A flashbang just went off. Bricks and rocks being thrown right here at the police. They have just rushed down 12th Street trying to knock some of these protesters down that way. They've just fired flashbang rounds. They are moving toward these protesters right here, many of whom have been throwing rocks and bricks. We just saw one gentleman who was down on the ground injured. Some people helped him up. He said he got sucker punched. He was dazed and was helped down the street a little bit. But you might have just seen it as we were coming on. There was a flashbang round being fired, and these riot police have just driven a wedge in the protesters, driven some of them down K Street that way, some of them this way. And as you can see, there's a very tense standoff going on here between the protesters here, protesters on the other side, and the police. There are some black-clad protesters over here wearing masks. These seem to be some of the protesters who have been more engaged with the police from what we've seen. So guys, I can just kind of narrate as we go here. The police, come on over here, John, if you can. Just come on over here with me if you can. Photojournalist John Bennett and I are going to move a little bit closer if we can here. Protesters are starting to move a little bit closer as well. If you guys can still hear me, we're going to see what happens in this standoff right here. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the police are now kind of strengthening their line over here, kind of shoring up their line here. And we just saw a bunch of police run down 12th Street that way. I'm going to try to move toward the corner. John, why don't you come with me over here? Because we want to try to see where some of the protesters and police moved down 12th Street to the south. But we have to be ready to move ourselves if there's going to be another confrontation here. We had numerous arrests earlier today. We had a couple of police officers injured. Sorry, guys, back to you then.
All right, Brian, you keep monitoring the situation, but stay safe, especially with that pepper spray in the air. We heard Renee coughing from that before. That'll stay with you if it hits you for a while, as we both know. Let us know when to come back to you. We just want to let you know that that voice you hear, that voice of God, is what it sounds like. It's the inaugural committee here giving people warning information and what to do if there's any problem here today, and some safety cues. They're getting ready for the overall inaugural parade. Just behind us, the different rows of military escort that are lining the avenue here as we get ready for the parade in about 45 minutes.
But we should also say that it couldn't be a more stark contrast to what we're seeing on the left side of our screen and here, where it's very peaceful. There are hundreds of thousands of people, it seems, who have come out. They're lining the streets. They're waiting for the parade. They're waiting for the new president to go by. Everyone is very calm. It's orderly on this side. So at K and 12th, you can see what's unfolding, but that's a pocket. And what we've seen is by far peaceful and, for the most part, excited.
And if we both lean out for a second, you can see the depth of all the people behind us. It goes all the way down the avenue already, still some 45 minutes away. Jim Sciutto, you're out there on the parade route. What do you know?
Chris, let me just give our viewers a bird's eye view of where you're seeing our reporters now, where these protests are taking place. Some of them here at McPherson Square and just over here on 12th and K. As you come out, you see that's very close, just a couple of blocks from the White House. And here, all along the middle, is that parade route from the Capitol leading up to the White House. And that's something that, in addition to keeping everything safe, everything running on time, U.S. Police, Secret Service, etc., they've wanted to keep this flowing as best they can. And I'll tell you, speaking with them earlier in the day, they really hadn't had much trouble. Now you're seeing something very